everybody. Hi, it's Becky from PowerToolsWithThread.com. That's my blog. Hope you guys are doing well. We are 10 months now into the Kimberbell Cuties Table Toppers Sew-Along. If you're new to my channel, I started this sew-along at the beginning of 2022 to kind of have a skill builder for embroiderers who are not quilters and quilters who are not embroiderers, because they're completely different skill sets. But these Kimberbell Cutie Table Toppers, they use all of those skills. This month is October, and this is such an adorable topper. I want to thank Sherry. She's part of my sewing team out of Pennsylvania. Thank you. This is very cute. I will list all of these fabrics below in the description box if you are interested in seeing what they are, and you can make your own. Now, the Kimberbell Cuties Table Topper series, this is the original Cuties Table Toppers that Kimberbell put out years ago. And the books are kind of hard to come by, but I will put a link below to where you can get yours from allbrands.com. And they also have CDs. So the book contains all of the patterns to make the table toppers as a quilter would read them, and they even have pages in there that you can trace the applique shapes that are going to go on, so you can do applique the old-fashioned way if you do not want to use your embroidery machine. Or you can also get the companion CD that has all of the embroidery designs on it, and that's what I use this time to set up the witch's hat that is going to go in the corner of each one of these corners on this topper, and then we're going to embroider these on. Later on in the video, you're going to see that I'm going to create an SVG cut file from the embroidery design using Embrilliance Essentials. If you've never tried Embrilliance Essentials, I really recommend you give it a shot. Maybe you don't have embroidery software, or maybe you do and you're looking for something that's just a little bit easier to work with. I love Embrilliance. It's my favorite embroidery software, and you only need essentials in order to be able to make SVG files from an embroidery design, and I'm going to explain to you how to do that here in just a minute. Then I upload that SVG cut file into the Brother Canvas and copy it, make 4 of them, 1 for each corner, and then download that to my Scan and Cut, and I use my Scan and Cut to cut out the little hats out of 4 different fabrics. It's a really fun way to kind of mix it up and enjoy this. And then that way you don't have to trim around the applique fabric. Once you get it, once you get that placement line put down, you can just iron it right in there. We're getting ready to sit down at the computer, do a little Scan and Cut, and then we're going to stitch this on. It might be split into 2 parts on the video. I don't want it to get too terribly long, but this one looks like a lot of fun, and so I'm looking forward to getting it done. All right, and in case you are wondering, yes, my new t-shirts are in the PowerToolsWithThread.com. They're flying off the shelves, so if you want one, please get yours. All right, you guys, let's get to it.
It is time to make the Kimberbell Cuties Table Topper for October. We've got this adorable little witch hat, and I'm going to make my applique out of 4 different fabrics to put on to the table topper. I want to make applique and pre-cut this, and in order to do that I need to make an SVG cut file. What I'm going to do is in the objects panel over here on the right, I clicked the plus sign and opened it up so I can see all the individual elements that make up the design. So we have this placement line right here, and I really don't want that because I'm not going to be stitching that on my project. So I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard and make that go away. The next line is the placement line for the fabric There's the tack down for the fabric. So if I was not pre-cutting the pieces, I would let this line stitch first, and then I would place like a big square of fabric over that line, making sure every bit of it is covered, and then the machine will stitch down the tack down line. Then I would remove the hoop and take my curved scissors and trim all around the outside of that. Well, I don't want to do that. I want to pre-cut these pieces using my brother's Scan and Cut. That way I can just iron them on quickly and I don't have to do any trimming in the hoop. So we'll continue to go through the design. We've got the little spider detail, and then here is the final satin stitching for the hat. It's a good idea to use the placement line for the shape to create the SVG cut file. All you have to do to create an SVG is to come down to the color chip in the properties box, and this is the thread color. It doesn't matter what color it is. I'm going to use whatever color I want, probably black for all of them. And you just click the chip and you come up with a thread dialog box, and it's got two tabs. One says color and one says applique. We're going to click applique. We're going to change it from not applique to applique position, or placement as I call it. And I'm going to do an inflate of 1.0 millimeters. The default is 1.5 and I backed it down to 1.0. I find that that just works pretty well for me. And I'm just going to click save right here. It says cutting. We don't have to do a fabric view or any of that. I'm just going to click save, and it comes up and it says save as type, and there it is, SVG. And I've got the witch hat. I'm just going to leave it titled that. It is in the Kimberbell folder already where the embroidery design was located. So I'm just going to click save and click OK and click OK, and that's it. So now I'm going to go out to the Brother canvas. I'm going to open my browser. We are at canvasworkspace.brother.com. I'm going to click login, and I want to use a new mat. Look at all these projects you can make here. You don't have to have a Brother machine to play with these, but they're a lot of fun. They've got a lot of fun things you can do. So I'm just going to click new, get a new mat, and up here on the top menu there's an icon and it says SVG, import SVG or FCM. I'm just going to click SVG, and it wants to know where do you want to get it from. So I have choose file, and it is in the folder with the hat. It's right there. Now it looks like, I'm going to expand this over a little bit. This looks like an Microsoft Edge HTML file. That's because the SVG file format is not native to Windows and it doesn't know what to do with SVG, so it just arbitrarily assigns some sort of file format. That doesn't matter. It's still an SVG file even though it does not look like it. So I'm going to click it and click open. Here you can see it is the witchhat.svg. If it was not an SVG file, you'd get an error message right here. So I'm going to click OK, and it has imported it in. I'm going to just real quickly, I'm going to right click and duplicate. There's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. So I am going to cut these, what we call pretty side up, so I don't need to mirror them. And I'm just going to put one in each quadrant of the mat. You can kind of see. I think as long as I put 6 by 6 inch squares of all different fabrics in there, they're going to cut out just fine. So I am going to prepare my fabric by ironing on Heat and Bond Light to the back of my fabrics, get them cut and get them put on a low tack mat to get ready to load into the Scan and Cut. Now I need to download these to the Scan and Cut, so I'm just going to come up here to the download button. You know what, before that I'm going to save these. So I'm just going to, up here in project title, I'm going to type KB hat. How about witch hat? And then on the project tab, there's a little inbox with an arrow and a plus sign, and I'm going to click that. There we go. So I've saved it. And now when I download it, I'm just going to click download, and you can download to PC, and see it gave it the title. So that's kind of why I did that first. Otherwise it comes in as some arbitrary name. But I'm just going to do scan and cut transfer right now. Click that, and it's ready. So it is ready for me to put the mat in and get these cut out. Okay, I have my fabrics on the mat, and this is the low tack adhesive mat. It's kind of a turquoise or aqua color. I have Heat and Bond Light on the back, and I have Pretty Side Up. When you put a substrate like Heat and Bond on the back of the fabric, you want to make sure that it's really shiny, almost glassy like, and it looks, you know, you've melded that substrate with the fibers on the fabric. Otherwise, it's not going to hold well, and it will peel up when you're not looking, and you got to be careful. So I'm just going to put the mat in right here, and I'm going to hit the load button. I've got 3 buttons. I have on off, actually 4, home, load, and pause, and I'm going to touch load. Okay, the first thing I want to do now that I've got my mat loaded is to retrieve the data. So I'm going to zoom in on the screen here so you can see what I'm doing. So we have some options here. This is pattern. These are patterns that are included in the machine when you bought it. And this is the SDX 325. It does not matter what kind of scan and cut you get. Everything from the SDX 85 to the 330D, they all will work this way and do this exactly the same. So we have pattern, like I said, those are shapes, fonts, everything that's included in the machine when you get it. And then you have scan. And down here we have retrieve data. And that's the button I want to press to get my hats from the cloud. Now it wants to know, where do you want to get it from? You can get it from the machine inside if I'd been messing with it and saved it to the machine. There's your pocket with the cloud. They changed, that's an update that just happened. There is an update available for the scan and cut. If you have not done that update, it will look like little radar waves instead of the cloud with the pocket. And then you have the USB, or you could be cabled to your computer. I'm going to get it from the cloud. Very cool little icon, brother. Thank you so much. And there are my hats. So the first thing I need to do is to take a picture of the mat using the scan and cut so that it can see exactly where the fabric is, and I can make sure that the hats are going to cut on the fabric where I want them. Right here on these buttons we have add, edit, and we've got 3 menu buttons right here, and that little button right there in the middle, the blue box with the bar, that's the scan button, and I want to scan the mat. And all I need to do now is press the start key, and it's going to scan. You know what? It looks like everything is going to fit really well. Maybe this one is really close to the edge right there. I'm going to touch it, and you can either move it by moving it around on the screen like that, or when it's highlighted you can touch edit, and you've got a crosshair right here, and that allows you to do little tiny micro movements, because sometimes it moves a lot on the screen when you're moving it with your pen. But everything looks like it's going to cut out just fine. So I'm going to tell it okay, and okay. We're backing out of those menus now. I'm going to go back one more and tell it okay. And now it says please select, and I'm going to tell it cut. And it's ready to go. So I'm just going to press start and let it do its thing. We're all finished. I'm going to tell it okay. And now let's see what we got. I'm just going to use my spatula and pull up a corner here. Oh, look. Very nice. Oh, we got one little thread. That's okay. Perfect. That's good.
did it in the same spot on all of them. Awesome. This is so much better than cutting in the hoop. Oh my goodness. Now when I take these off, I will get my spatula under there and just kind of scrub a little bit. Just lift, don't pull, because you don't want to distort the fabric at all. You want to start on some larger piece, not on that little tip, and just get it to come up that way. In less than 2 minutes, these were all cut out. Isn't that cute? Look at that. That's adorable. Okay, I'm ready to sew it on now. I'm getting ready to hoop my table topper. Now, because this was sewn for me previously, again, it's gorgeous. Just a simple 16 patch with very easy quilting, stitch in the ditch, and echo quilting all around. Super cute. The way this is going to be done is you're going to be able to see the embroidery bobbin stitches on the back. That's not important to me because it's going to be on a table and nobody's going to look at it on the back anyway, or I might even hang it on a wall, but nobody's going to see it. If it bothers you, and when you make yours, you would not want to put your backing on just yet. You want to do your embroidery before you put the backing on. I'm going to be using one of Dime's magnetic hoops. This is the 9x14. I absolutely love these hoops for doing these kinds of projects because these magnets are really strong and they can hold all of the layers tightly in a hoop, and you don't have to try to recess this big thick bulk into a traditional hoop. So this is great. I'm just going to put this underneath one of the corners, and I want to make sure, this is the one I'm going to do first, and I want to make sure I can feel the metal frame down here. I'm going to put it right down by the edge of where the binding is stitched on and over here, so that I know the needle will not hit in this little corner. And I'm going to put my frame top on. I can feel the metal down here with my thumb. I'm going to move this down. And you can take the plastic, corrugated plastic that comes with it, and you can drop it down onto the plastic and then easily slide the plastic out, and that way you don't get any pinched fingers. Very handy. In Embrilliance, before I finished with it, I did do a printout. I left that placement line on the printout right there so you can see that, okay? And I'm just gonna rough cut trim, and that way it's going to be easier for me to put this where I want. This is just how I do it every day in my sewing room. Nothing is pre-staged. And I am going to fold on the crosshair lines. I'm going to fold it. It just makes it easier too to do that, pre-fold. There's a method to my madness. And I need a dime target sticker. If you have a brother or a baby lock, you can also use the snowman stickers, but a lot of people don't have them, so I want to show you how to do that. I will link to the magnetic hoops and the Designs and Machine Embroidery target stickers below this video. I'm just going to pull one out, and they have a crosshair on them with an arrow. You can see that? Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me put it this way so maybe you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to take this placement line and I'm going to put it right on the seam line there and make sure that it is straight. Yeah, that looks real good. And this is the top of the design right here. So I need to make sure that the arrow is pointing this way to the top of the design. So this is how the design is set in the embroidery field. So this is the top. Matter of fact, let me make it easy to see. I've got a friction marker here. I will put top right there. Okay. So I'm going to put this right. I can see the seam line through the paper. You can also use Dime's print and stick target paper. That's very handy for this. So I am going to fold it in half on that pre-folded line, and I'm going to fold it down on that pre-folded line. And then I'm going to take my target sticker with the arrow pointing toward top, and I'm going to put this in just like that, so that the arrow is pointing toward the top of the design. We'll do a little design rotation at the machine, but that's the way I'm going to do it. So now I have got it in. I have already sent the design over to the machine, and we are ready to get stitching. If you're new to machine embroidery, I recommend that you look at the book that came with your machine in order to know exactly how to operate it. Now, this is the Brother Luminaire. This is the XP2. It does not have the XP3 upgrade in it just yet. It'll get it soon. If you've never used your embroidery part of your machine before, because some machines are combos and some are just embroidery on their own, regardless, just kind of keep in mind, it's a sewing machine. It threads exactly like a sewing machine. If it is a combo, the only difference is instead of you moving the fabric with your hands, the fabric is being moved with the arm of the embroidery machine. So that takes a little of the mystique away. And on most machines, and especially on my Brother machine, because that's pretty much all I sew on, our Brother machines, each point where the thread needs to go is numbered. And I am using Designs and Machine Embroidery's exquisite thread. I love that thread. And it doesn't say to, but I run it through the top eye up here as a guide, just to come down off the spool. Generally, embroidery threads like to travel up and then down. And so if your machine also has a side spool like this, a horizontal spool, you'd want to use this for sewing. But if you don't have a spool on the top, for embroidery thread to come up and then down, you want to come up in the thread tree and then down, you might consider putting a cup, a tall cup, heavy, behind the machine, and then run the thread up and over that way through a thread guide up top, something like that. You will find you have fewer thread breaks and snags and that kind of thing. Here on my machine, this looks exactly like my sewing machine that I have from Brother. There is an automatic needle threader. You have a speed slider, slow, medium, and fast. This does not matter when you're in the embroidery mode, because the way the design stitches in embroidery, your machine has a top stitches per minute that it can do, and it knows what to do with that. So that's totally dependent. The machine will determine how fast it needs to go when it's creating an embroidery design. So this gizmo right here on Brother and Baby Lock machines, it's ineffective when it comes to embroidery. If you need to slow your machine down, you would actually do it in your embroidery settings in the brain of the machine. And then we have presser foot up and down. We have a cutter, needle thread cutter. Generally don't use that. That's automatic because tie-offs are digitized into the embroidery design by the digitizer. We have needle up down. We have a knot, and we have reverse, which we don't use in embroidery, and then green is for go, and right now we're on red. That's pretty much it. I am using the W foot. For this machine, the W foot is the embroidery hopping foot or the embroidery foot. It's a different letter on my NQ3700D, but that's because it doesn't use that very particular foot. I am using an Organ 7511 needle. Brother and Baby Lock machines are timed at the factory with Organ needles. So if you have one of those machines and you're experiencing thread shredding or breaks, and you're not using an Organ needle, there's a reason Organ needles came with your machine out of the box. So you might give that a try. And then I am using a dime pre-wound 70 weight bobbin in there. So time is money, you guys. This is so worth it. Your pre-wounds, you get more thread on them. And the only time I do not use a pre-wound bobbin is when I need one to be in color, like if I'm doing freestanding lace, and then I'll make my own. But for the most part, these are the way to go. I absolutely love them, and they last forever. Okay, So we are ready to get started. I have already threaded my machine and I've got the needle threaded and we're getting ready to go. I have my little hats right here that we cut out on the Scan and Cut. So these are ready to go too. And I need to heat my little iron so I can iron on my pieces. Okay. So my iron is heating up. When you iron, I'm gonna pull the hoop out a little bit. I have a Steady Betty. This is a Woolly Betty. It's got woolly on one side and the Steady Betty on the other, and you can tell it's pretty well used. But I'll use a Steady Betty to put it underneath and then press it on. If you have to remove your hoop, you definitely want to make sure that you put it onto a firm surface on your lap or on a table or desk or something like that, because you don't want your project to shift in your hoop. Even if you're using a standard hoop and maybe you floated it or something like that, just be sure to put it on a firm surface. You really don't want to pop it out of the hoop because that will ruin it. You'll have to unstitch everything with your handy dandy dime seam ripper. I keep very close, my stitch ripper, and then you have to start all over. So it's not insurmountable, but it's a pain, so better safe than sorry. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna pull up the design in my machine. I'm gonna take the camera closer so you can see me do that, and then we're gonna go through exactly what we need to do to pull this up. On a Brother or a Baby Lock machine, you want to touch the pocket for memory. And you can get the design from inside the machine. You can see I've been playing with some bubbles there. You can get it from a USB. That's for your mouse. There is a chip. It has a slot in the side for a chip, or you could get it wirelessly, and I send it over wirelessly. So I'm going to touch that, and there is my witch's hat. Touch that and hit set. So I have told it that is the design I want to use. On the menu here, we're still in an edit mode. I am going to go into embroidery by touching embroidery. And now I want to go to layout so that the hat is rotated the way I had it with the top here. And this red line is down here in this lower left corner. So I'm gonna touch layout and rotate, and I'm gonna rotate 90. There, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm gonna tell it okay. And I need to make sure that it's gonna stitch right here. And up here on the luminaire, there is a W foot button, and it will give you a little crosshair. It's up here in the top corner. So it's going to project a green crosshair down onto the project. Let me zoom you in. I'm going to use the move buttons, and I'm going to use these jog buttons right here to bring it down pretty close. So you can see the green crosshair on the yellow sticker here. So that's ready to go. I'm going to remove this sticker. Our button is green on the machine. Life is good. And I'm just going to go ahead and stitch out the placement line for the hat. Oh, I did not want to do that. So remember I told you I didn't want to stitch that placement line? You really can't see it because it is stitched in the ditch and it's black. You cannot see that placement line. I'm going to cut the thread. This is a secret. Did not mean to do that. On the main menu, there is a needle minus and a plus. I'm going to touch that. And I'm going to jump ahead one stitch. There. There's my placement line for my hat. Now I can stitch it out. I'm going to tell it okay. I'm going to remove the hoop and I'm going to iron on my piece from the Scan and Cut. I put on a dime hoop guard. This makes life so much easier, not having to worry about something flopping into the embroidery field.
Now you don't always have to stitch the tack down line because obviously it's already tacked down because it's ironed on, but you might want to do that just to make sure you don't need to do any micro trimming in case you went outside of the line too much with your ironing. Generally, industry standard for vinyl satin stitching is 3 millimeters in width, so you may not have to do any trimming at all, even if it's outside just a tiny bit. This looks perfect. Okay, the next stitch is the little spider. It's time for the final satin stitching all around the hat, and that's an 8-minute stitch. Okay, we're all finished. I got a little bit of a pucker here, and I will steam that out. I think that'll work okay. This isn't too bad, but I think it looks great. I'll steam this down real good. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, well, 1 down, 3 to go. Okay, you guys, we're all done. This turned out just adorable. I want to thank Sherry again for sewing this up for me. You saved me loads and loads of hours of time, and I really appreciate it. It turned out super cute. I am now ready to add it to the rest of these. We've got 2 more to go. If you haven't started yet, there's time. You can start watching them for next year because I have a playlist for the Kimberbell Cuties Table Toppers. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. We will talk to you soon. You guys go sew something. Bye.